Alright, if you remember in the last lesson, we learned how to simplify a fraction. Today we are going to learn a new skill called common denominators, so we're going to learn to find common denominators. Now, before we start, I would just like to quickly review simplifying fractions, just so we don't forget about it. So if I were to have a fraction such as 5/10, okay, we remember last time we had to find our GCF, or our greatest common factor. So we would do 5, make a t-chart, 10, and then we would list our factors of 5, so 1 and 5, and that's all. And then 10 is 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. And then we circle the factors that we have in common, so I see 1, and I also see 5. And then our GCF is the one that's the biggest that they have in common, which, if you notice, would be the number 5, since it's bigger than 1. Then we take that greatest common factor, we divide both the numerator and the denominator of our fraction by 5. 5 divided by 5 would give me 1, and 10 divided by 5 would give me 2. So simplified, 5/10 is equal to 1/2. Alright, now I am going to erase this just very quickly, and then we'll start with our common denominators. So a common denominator is a denominator that is the same amongst two or more fractions. So that bottom number in the fractions would be the same. So for example, if we had the fractions, let's say 1/5 and 3/5. So if you look, they have a common denominator because both denominators are 5. So we are going to learn to find this. To find a common denominator of two or more fractions, you need a simple trick called finding the least common multiple. So last time we learned about the greatest common factor, which is GCF. Okay, this time we are going to learn the least common multiple, or the LCM. The least common multiple is the smallest multiple that two or more numbers have in common. If you don't remember what a multiple is, it's a product of one number multiplied by another. A lot of you would really just consider this like skip counting. Okay, so I'm going to screenshot this page quickly, and then we are going to turn to a new page. So we are going to start with two fractions. We're going to start with 1/5, and this is my little and symbol, 1/2. And I would like to find a common denominator for this. So the first thing I need to do is find the least common multiple. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to list both of these numbers. So 5, because we're looking at denominators, and 2. And then I'm just going to skip count by each of these numbers. So 5, I would start with 5, and then 10. So I'm counting by 5s. 15, 20, 25, and we'll just do a couple to start. If we don't find something they have in common, we'll have to keep going, obviously. Then I'm going to skip count by 2s. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see what ones they have in common. So if I look, I definitely see 10, and that's actually all I see that they have in common so far. Now if I kept going, 16, 20, you also see that they also have 20 in common. However, for least common multiple, we're looking for the smallest, so once I see 1, that's the smallest, I know that's going to be my LCM. So my least common multiple in this case is going to be 10, because it's the smallest multiple that they have in common. Alright, so I just took a screenshot of that page for you. Now I'm going to show you how to make this your new Okay, so now that we found the LCM, your LCM is actually going to be the same thing as your common denominator. So this actually becomes your common denominator. Sorry, spelling's not so, or the handwriting's not so good on that one. So that would be our common denominator is 10. So if I asked you to find a common denominator between 5 and 2, it would be 10. Okay, that's your least common denominator. Alright, I got another screenshot of that, so I'll put it on your notes. And now I'm going to turn the page and we're going to try another problem. So this time let's try the fractions 1/6 and 2/4. Okay, so since I'm trying to find a common denominator, I'm looking at the denominator, so it's our 6 and 4. And then I'm looking for that LCM, our least common multiple, which means I need to skip count by these numbers. So 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 3 is 18, 6 times 4 is 24, 6 times 5 is 30, 6 times 6 is 36. So I can stop for now, and then we'll try 4. 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times, what was I on, 6 is 24, 4 times 7 is 28. Alright, so now I need to look carefully and see which ones I can find that they might have in common. So I see 12 is in common. Let's see, anything else? Oh, I see 24. But now remember, I'm looking for the least common multiple. So that's going to tell me 12 is my least common multiple or my least common denominator. So 12 becomes my common denominator. All right, let's do one more example together. This time we are going to do, let's try 3/5 and 4/6. So I'm looking for a common denominator, which means I'm going to be just focusing on my denominators, which is 5 and 6. And then I need to find the least common multiple, which will become our common denominator. So I'm going to skip count. I'm going to do 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Same with 6. So 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 3 is 18, 6 times 4 is 24, 6 times 5 is 30, 6 times 6 is 36, 6 times 7 is 42. Now I gotta look for those ones they might have in common. And the one I see is 30, and that's the only one I see so far. And it might be a bigger number, but it's still our least common multiple or our common denominator. Alright, and that's all you have to do to find a common denominator. Now we will use this skill in the next lesson, but for now we are just going to be finding common denominators. You will have some work you get to do with a partner and kind of interact with one another and kind of a more collaborative sort of way this week, but more instruction will come on that in the next couple sections.